Limits of the Flesh, Chapter 17, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. Hearing Rias's burn, Riser hit that mythical spark of primordial rage where a normally sane man decides, I am going to smack a bitch. And completely blacks out in that moment of going to lay hands on their target. Ahem, I spoke grinning as I interposed myself between Riser and Rias, who was still behind her desk, and even Akeno, who was behind Rias, was ready to lay out some lightning onto Riser, seeing the irate man advancing on her king. You don't want to do that. You are a guest, go sit down or I will make you sit. I said quietly as I lost the smile at the burn, and I looked down at the slightly shorter man's dark blue eyes with my golden ones, and seeing how serious I was, the high-class devil stopped in his tracks. Get the hell out of my way, peon, I have a woman to discipline. He said slowly, and then raised up a hand in front of my face that was coated in golden flames. Put down that hand, before I sew it into your face, you big baby bitch. I responded just as cockily before I gracefully stepped back as Riser went to slap at me with his flame-coated hands, and then the man was instantly smashed into the clubroom's wall with a pillar of ice as Graphia came out of a teleportation sigil she made behind Riser and out of his view. Riser Phoenix, attempt to lay your hand again on a servant of the Gremory peerage at your own peril, Graphia said as she allowed the pillar of ice that pinned Riser into the wall to disappear, leaving the devil to audibly heal his very fractured ribs and other bones. Understood, strongest queen. Riser said, almost snarling, but seeing the white-haired maid raise an eyebrow at his attitude, Riser's face went still as he attempted to put on a poker face. Now, as the Queen of Lucifer, I will be acting as an unbiased intermediary between Rias Gremory and Riser Phoenix due to the insult of Riser Phoenix's actions of sending an unannounced familiar into Rias Gremory's territory and even spying upon her personal holdings. What say you, Riser Phoenix? Graphia droned on as she took the center field of the room. Riser merely allowed his familiar to explore Japan freely. It was completely by coincidence that it made its way to Kuo and was looking in on Rias. Perhaps it sensed our great connection. Riser mused, and I could only snort at his bullshit. Rias, isn't it a sign of mental instability to be speaking in the third person? Couldn't you use the fact that he is lacking in sound mind to evade this engagement? I asked, making everyone in the room giggle except for Riser himself, who blushed in outrage at my words, with even Graphia subtly coughing into a hand to cover her own little titter at my joke. You will find surviving past the day of my nuptials for these insults difficult. Riser suddenly yelled as he pointed at me, and for a moment, I considered looking to Graphia or Rias for intervention, but then I realized that in this devil society where might made right, I needed to stand up for myself, as caustic words were all well and good, but I needed to be able to back it up. Yeah. What are you going to do? Use your family's wealth to hire assassins or something? Or are you going to be a man and do it yourself? I asked, and with me asking bluntly if he was going to use his family's connections to do such things, he wouldn't be able to set up some skivy shit as with myself being connected Rias's that would be an attack on not only her but the whole Gremory house, which included her very very scary older brother. Seeing Riser about to retort, I continued. Look, I know Rias's comment about your manhood being the reason you are so obsessed with little girls has thrown you off. But let's be honest. This is only going to end in a rating game, as Rias utterly refuses to marry you, so let's skip the little grandstanding and set the date to our dance where you attempt to hurt me, and I laugh at you and your little dick-waving contest. Riser had gone past the whole eruption of anger and had seemingly entered a numb state as he nodded and looked to Graphia and spoke in a hoarse voice. I, Riser Phoenix, demand a rating game between myself and peerage versus Rias Gremory and her peerage for the insults levied towards my noble self. We agree. Rias yelled before Graphia interjected, and the sister-in-law gave Rias a gimlet eye before nodding before looking to Riser. Very well. Due to the excitement of the day and due to planning a possible wedding, we will postpone this rating game for a full week so as to allow invitations to all the underworld may watch the rating game, and then possibly the wedding in the next couple of days after the game should Riser win. Graphia spoke. Heh, although you have actually gotten a couple more pieces, my peerage is actually full and actually has rating game experience. Riser boasted, snapping his fingers, and then a large teleportation array burst into life behind him with his full peerage coming out of the teleportation, already basically posing. Dude. I said, flabbergasted at that little realization, and then Riser burst into laughter seeing my face. Huh, you peon, do you now see the difference between Riser Phoenix and you? Watch as I actually have women and a full harem at that. Riser said in maniac triumph after getting ahead of me in something, and even went as far as grabbing the bustiform of Eubuluna, his queen, and the so-called bomb queen to make out with her in full view of his possible fiancée. No, you fucking tool, I saw they were all already posing as though they were in some cringy sports showcase, and with how instantaneous your teleportation was, I knew they must have been holding those damned poses for the whole 10 minutes you have been here. Then I pointed to the actually classily dressed blonde beauty with ringlets for hair. Dude, is she your sister? Is that how depraved that you would sink your claws into your younger sister? I said dramatically, and I saw Ravel's face turn an atomic red as she looked to her brother in horror as she herself realized how I could have gotten that conclusion from how Riser called his whole peerage his harem. Absolutely not, you low-class devil. Ravel screeched, stomping forward to surprisingly kick Riser in the shin and making him grunt as he was pulled away from Eubuluna by the strong-headed younger girl. Riser, let's go. We already have a rating game set, and mother and father will already be pissed at you for how this meeting went. Fine, Ravel. Riser groaned before he locked eyes with me and then looked to EI, who was still beside me, and then he frowned, but I saw he had evil thoughts brewing within his head. What is that person doing here anyway? She isn't even a devil anyway. She is mine, I said, cutting off anything Rias could say, and I could all but feel EI preening beside me, and Riser's eyebrow perked up at the realization that she was only attached to a low-class devil.